Have to act on it now. I mean, again, PPP has expired. Unemployment expires this week. You've got the need for us to provide more testing money. So I think we need to do it now. It's likely we'll be in session next week with the House. We could do it next week. We kind of know what the parameters are. We've been going back and forth on this. We had a bill last Thursday that 52 out of 100 senators support it. So you have a majority of the Senate on record supporting a package already. And we can build on that, and we can, add some more. We need to get to 60 votes. We need 8 additional votes. In the House, they've got their own package. Yesterday, there was a group of House Republicans and Democrats who proposed a compromise bill. So I think there is an opportunity next week to get something done.
Conference yesterday, the president said Republicans in Congress need to go for much higher numbers regarding the next stimulus as far as the coronavirus goes. Does that make you hopeful that pressure from their party leader is going to make that happen?
I'm very hopeful that Senator McConnell listens to others. My favorite Abraham Lincoln quote is that he used to say, I need to leave the White House and get my public opinion back. And, that essentially means that I don't think Mitch McConnell and most of my Republican colleagues are getting out much talking to people, and they're not seeing the pain that people are feeling. And otherwise, we would have already passed the $600 a week unemployment extension because 600,000 Ohioans, the 1st of August, just like that, lost their unemployment. What are they to do to feed their families and stay in their apartments or their homes without eviction or foreclosure? That I'm hopeful that any new developments will push Mitch McConnell into providing money for public schools. I don't know how school districts in this Columbus City schools, how they can open without more money so they can open safely. They've lost tax revenue. The state's cut their funding, and they have huge new responsibilities to make the schools safe. Yet Washington has simply looked at them and said, you're on your own. And that's just so wrong in the middle of a pandemic.
Well, I think the president is correct that we ought to figure out a way to once again come together as Republicans and Democrats and pass something that helps here. We've had the small business program called the PPP, Paycheck Protection Program, expire. We've had the unemployment insurance expire. We have funding needed for testing, for the vaccine, for therapies. We have money needed for our schools right now as they're reopening. So I think there's an opportunity for us to get together. And what the president was saying, as I read it, was, okay, both sides need to, compromise a little and come up with a common ground approach. And by the way, we've done that 5 times already, including the CARES Act, which is the best known, but there were 4 other bills as well. So the CARES Act passed the United States Senate by a vote of 96-0. So that was very bipartisan. And I'm hopeful that we can maybe not get 96-0 again, but end up with a bipartisan product. I gave a floor speech on this yesterday in the Senate floor and last week and talked about so many of the similarities there are between the Republican position and the Democrat position. Seems to me like politics are getting in the way. We should put the politics aside, do what's right for the American people, for our economy, and for the healthcare crisis, and ensure that we're not saying just because an election is coming up, we can't act. Well, I think there are 4 things that are needed right now. One is to help small businesses, because that's where we see a lot of the problem. There are companies in the Columbus area that are holding on barely, telling me they're going to have to shut their doors unless they get the help soon. And this is by way of loans, and also loans that can be forgiven if they're used for payroll. And it's been a good program. It's really worked to save a lot of businesses. So that's one we got to do, because that has expired. Second, on unemployment insurance, we have to continue, in my view, to have a federal benefit. Not everybody agrees with that, but I think enough Republicans and Democrats agree there needs to be continuation. It shouldn't be at the $600 level, because that means most people, according to the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, 80% of the people would make more on unemployment than they would at work. So $600 is a little high, but $300 is what the president had put in place administratively, what was in the legislation last week that was introduced and voted on. And that is probably about right, because that way, for Ohio median income workers, they'll get about 90% of their wages, but not 100 and some percent. In other words, people won't be making more on average than they can make by working. So I think there's a way to do that. And I think there's a lot of Republicans and Democrats that agree with that, because they're hearing from the nonprofits and the businesses that are having a tough time hiring people at $600. And look, that's also expiring. It's expiring really this week. So this week, Ohio is going to stop paying the federal supplement on unemployment insurance. And then the final ones, of course, are our schools and then our healthcare system. Our schools are reopening. They need the help. And then with regard to our hospital system and the healthcare system generally, Ohio needs more money for testing because we're testing at nursing homes and other places. It's expensive, and that money is in any kind of a compromise bill too, I believe. So I think we can get it done. It just is a matter of political will and putting the politics aside and focusing on the substance.
The $1,200 per person is a good thing. It goes only sort of moderate income and lower income people. But the most important thing is the $600 a week for unemployed workers. There's 600,000 Ohioans, they can't find jobs. They want to work. They've lost jobs in a whole host of industries and businesses that aren't coming back soon. They won't be back by in November or December. They might be back by early or middle next year. But we should be those families. They didn't choose to lose their jobs. The breadwinners in those families, the mothers and fathers, and we have an obligation. That's $600 a week. There's a study that $600 a week kept 12 million Americans out of poverty. So we're going to turn our backs on them, as Senator McConnell and President Trump have done, or we're going to come back and do what we did bipartisanly back in March and did that $600 a week unemployment insurance for workers that can't find jobs.
Yeah, I think it's probably part of a compromise package. I think the $1,200 that was done last time would probably be replicated again because that can be done very quickly. The IRS now has a way to do it even more quickly than they did last time because they've gone through the drill before. And it's $1,200 a person up to $75,000. So it's not for everybody, but if you make up to $75,000, and then twice that, $2,400 for couples, and then additional around $500 for children. So I think that's probably part of any package that ends up being negotiated, and I would be supportive of that as part of a broader package.